Okay, welcome everyone to part 2 of my conversation with Forrester analyst Joseph Blankenship and Dr. Chase Cunningham. Gentlemen, in this segment, what I really want to talk about is, there's a lot of conversations about the value of SOAR, and it kind of results around the things that everybody that we've discussed in part 1 and everybody kind of agrees with about the need for automation, orchestrating the various tools that you use as a way to respond quickly, deal with alert overload, track and measure everything. Those are kind of the no-brainer benefits of SOAR. What I want to talk about is how SOAR fits into the larger pictures, right? And how it integrates with some of the, call it modern security frameworks that organizations are adopting, or if they're not, they definitely should be adopting. And I want to start with zero trust, right? For those of you who out there who don't know, zero trust was actually born inside of Forrester research. So it's great that we have you two to talk about it. Maybe Chase, we'll start, just again, give us an overview of zero trust. Again, it's been around, people are familiar with it, but maybe just give us kind of your definition of zero trust, where it is today, before we dive into how SOAR plays into zero trust.
Yeah, so let me give you the academic sort of definition. And the reason I think this has value is because for a long time, people have said, well, what is the definition of this thing? Well, okay, we took that for task, and a couple of years ago, we came up with what we think the broad, not biblical, but broad sort of strategic definition of what ZT is. And this is what's written in the text. So zero trust is strategically focused on addressing lateral threat movement within the network by leveraging microsegmentation and granular enforcement based on user context, data access control, location, application, and the device posture. So if that's the definition, what we really should take away from that is zero trust is focused on operationalizing capability across all of those things and being able to leverage something that can help you intercept when things go wrong there. If you look at the history of attacks and compromises and malware and ransomware and whatever, those things that we mentioned specifically in that definition are key components. And what you're looking to get to ZT is to remove those things. You don't allow default configuration. You don't allow excessive privileges. You remove bad passwords. You don't give people access to things that they don't need for the purposes of work. And on the far end, to do that, especially when we're as remote and dispersed and spread as we are, we've got to be able to do that in an automated fashion. And you don't want to do it twice. So you must orchestrate that operation.
Excellent. Before that, JB, maybe I can get some of your perspective. Again, I think the reason zero trust is so popular is exactly for the reasons that Chase mentioned. Where is zero trust adoption as you see it today? I'm curious, right? How many companies are adopting it? How far along are they? Curious, what from where Forrester sits, how you see zero trust adoption in the market.
Yeah, Nimmy. Gosh, I think we first postulated zero trust, and Chase, keep me honest here, was it like 12 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2009 was the first mention in the Forrester stuff for it.
Yep. So I think initially, Nimmy, people looked at zero trust and were like, that sounds good, right? How do we do a zero trust? And the answer at that point was kind of a statement around using lots and lots of firewalls and lots of ACLs, very complex rules to set up all these micro perimeters, and which sounded great in theory, right? Until you actually started trying to price that out and trying to do it and all that kind of stuff, especially with the tools of the age. So we didn't really have good, efficient tools for doing any of those things. So we kind of, fast forward, a decade or so, our tools are a lot better. And that's one of the reasons that, I think Chase, put automation and orchestration into the ZTX framework, is that we knew we had to be able to orchestrate policy across all these tools. At the same time, we needed to automate a lot of our operations, to make it possible to more quickly identify and respond to things in the environment. So what I think I've seen, Nimmy, is really gradual adoption, I guess, over the first maybe 8 years of zero trust. The last 2 years, probably a tremendous acceleration of zero trust adoption. And I think it's because people have become more aware of zero trust. You have U.S. government initiatives around zero trust, and even some other government initiatives around zero trust. The tooling has gotten a lot better. The fact that we are able to really have more granular control over identities in the policy around those identities has gotten a lot greater. And all of those factors coming together have really accelerated adoption. So I'd probably hesitate to try to throw a figure on overall enterprise adoption, but I know Chase is probably one of the busiest analysts in all of Forrester, trying to help customers go and adopt zero trust. It's one of the things we've been really focused on the last couple of years, is making this practical for folks, how to actually get started with zero trust and then get it implemented in their environment. We added another analyst to work with Chase on that, because it's just it's gotten a lot of attention.
Excellent. So as you mentioned, JB, when you think about zero trust and you think about tools and technologies, the first categories that come to mind are probably firewalls, right? Micro-segmentation, maybe privileged identity management and those tools. And also, as you mentioned, Chase, you actually added automation and orchestration technologies as part of the zero trust framework. Again, maybe not the first technology that comes into mind. So I'd love to get kind of your thesis on where orchestration and automation fits in a zero trust architecture.
Well, I mean, I think where it fits really is when we look at all these other capabilities. When you kind of think of what is required to get towards a future state. I mean, I have conversations with people all the time about, how do we do this and can we get there and what does this look like and whatever else. And I mean, my response to them a lot of times is like, could you dig a ditch with a spoon? It's like, well, yes, we could dig a ditch with a spoon. Okay, correct. Could you dig a ditch with 100 people with spoons? Well, yes. Now, wouldn't that be terrible? Well, yes. Okay, then if we're going to do this right and we're going to do it fast and optimize resources, wouldn't it be great to have a steam shovel and let that dig the ditch for you? That's what we're getting to with automation or orchestration, is like the tools to do the job are present in the market. End of story. They're there. But to do this at scale and to actually have the capability to move towards a more optimal future state, we've got to leverage those steam shovels that will allow us to do this bigger, better, faster. And that's why we put that into the framework, because it is fundamentally impossible for an organization to achieve ZT if they cannot do automation people.
Interesting. And I think this fits into a trend that at least we're seeing with SOAR use cases for our customers. People typically deploy SOAR and they start off with, detect, respond, right? Or detect, investigate, respond. Here's an alert. Okay, I'm gonna put some playbooks in place, automate as much of the data gathering and help the investigation. Maybe once I decide to take response, maybe I automate some of the response action. And as at least the organizations that we work with, as they get more mature with SOAR, they realize that they can also use it for kind of non-traditional, detect, response use cases, and more around, I'd say kind of security, maybe daily operations, right? Things like, hey, I can actually look at all the new vulnerabilities and trigger and and automate task or automate patching if that's applicable, or look at all the recent threat intel and make the necessary adjustments that are not necessarily around, oh, here's an alert that came in and how I need to investigate and either close it or respond to it. And I think we see again zero trust starting to emerge is, hey, I can actually automate what is, let's call it security maintenance, for lack of a better word. I don't know if that's the best term, but as opposed to, again, detect incident response. And we're certainly seeing organizations reach that level of maturity where they're able to leverage SOAR and automation also for more security maintenance tasks and not just incident response.
Well, and there's a point there too around the visibility and analytics side, right? If you look at our framework, we have a wicket for visibility and analytics and one for automation orchestration. Visibility and analytics, we've got that pretty well solved. It's been around for a while, but where we really run into a lot of issues is people say, I see it, what do I do? And then the response is, well, you do something and you do it intelligently and you do it across the enterprise. And if you don't have a capability to automate that, then you're just basically seeing the problem. And that no one wants to walk into a doctor's office and the doctor goes, I think you're really sick, and then turns around and leaves. Like you need a treatment plan that will work at scale. It's not enough just to say problem.
Right, for sure. Um, so maybe let's move to I think another security framework, which is the MITRE ATT&CK, right? Which has been getting a lot of hype, and at least in my opinion, for all the right reasons. I think again, it is a sound framework to think about, where your gaps are, and how you need to respond to different attacks throughout the kill chain. So again, maybe JB, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about the role of automation and orchestration when it comes to operationalizing a MITRE ATT&CK framework and as part of a security operations function.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of folks, when you first see MITRE ATT&CK, right, it's a little daunting. You've got that kind of the periodic table kind of a view, and you look at that, and at least for me, the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know what to do with this, right? I don't know how to make use out of this thing. And I think a lot of operators kind of had the exact same reaction. Now, the power of MITRE ATT&CK actually comes as soon as you start mapping a lot of your detections to the framework, right? Because now you end up with a common vocabulary to talk about the observables and the behaviors that you're seeing. Not only do you end up with a common framework for that, you also end up with a common framework for what do we go do about it. And so because you've got that common framework, that actually makes automation a lot easier, right? When things are nebulous, they're very hard to automate. You're starting you're just going to automate random activities. That's probably not very useful. But if I can take something like MITRE ATT&CK and say, this is actually prescriptive and descriptive of what different what attacks look like, different attack stages look like, and now what remediations look like. Now I can actually design an orchestrated workflow to identify, do the investigative steps, and now go and sort of applying remediation steps according to that framework. And I can track it throughout the entire process inside MITRE ATT&CK. And that becomes really powerful, right? Because, kind of at the starting point, I'm using MITRE ATT&CK just to show my coverage for all of these things. And now I can actually use it as part of my investigation plan and my response plan, and then come back and say, and we were successful, and here's how we were successful. So I actually find that having that the rigor of MITRE ATT&CK, if you will, actually enables us to do orchestration a heck of a lot better than if we were just like automating random events.
Right, and kind of to share from our experience, at Siemplify, we actually have an integration with the MITRE ATT&CK framework that actually brings together information from MITRE into the alert that is generated, and that does two things. A, for the analyst, it can provide actionable information about what you need to do, but more importantly, I think at the manager level, you can map out where your actual gaps are. Because you say, you go in this periodic table and say, oh, I've deployed a tool that detects this, so check, right? But then is that really what reality looks like, right? What are you actually being hit with? So then you're able to generate reports. Says, okay, if I look at all the alerts, all the things that got past my detection tools, how did they map to the MITRE ATT&CK, and where did I detect them, right? What stage of the MITRE ATT&CK framework did I detect them? And I think that is let's call it a stronger version of the truth as to where your gaps actually are. I think there's and again, I think once, and I take it back to kind of the beginning of part one for those of you who tuned into part one. We said, JP, we said I walked in and people were doing spreadsheets and notepads. I think when you capture the analyst activity in a platform, okay, this is an intelligent human analyst closed this as a false positive, or an intelligent human analysts determine that this is malicious, and now you can feed that data into insights, is where you really start letting the data do the talking about am I getting better, where am I actually hit, which gaps I need to close, and that's based on actual activity and not on, like you said, hey, I need to check these 5 boxes, so I'm gonna write these 5 documents or deploy these 5 tools, and now the box is checked and I'm good. Chase, I'd love to pose the same question to you about MITRE ATT&CK, the role of automation and orchestration in implementing the framework.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a great framework. I think that the people at MITRE are brilliant for putting that stuff together. But I agree with JB. It is a periodic table. I mean, even people that have been in ops for a long time looked at that and were like, oh, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. And be really being able to understand it and have a capability to make it active is the difference maker. We can have really good academic sort of solutions to the problem. If we can't use them, then they're kind of just pretty stuff written on a piece of paper. So I mean, having that ability to be able to leverage it and translate that useful framework into operational capacity is where the difference lies.
And maybe can you share maybe some best practice that you've seen in customers that you work with? Maybe good and bad examples of how you actually, like you said, take this periodic table and extract value from it that ultimately, helps you do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you see from folks that are doing it right is that they're focusing on being pretty formulaic with that framework as they bring it into, not looking at it and going, oh, here's the MITRE framework. It's this big thing. Let's just MITRE it and then go forward. And that really becomes kind of chasing your tail. When you have a framework or something that is built to be broken up into pieces, the right way to use it is to take the pieces that are most easily solvable first and put that into play and then work your way forward from that. And in most organizations, you should, I think, sort of get the visibility side of things really vectored in so that what you're doing is actually useful and where the dark corners lie. Otherwise, you kind of continue to scrape at the the nether regions of your network, if you will, while there's still cockroaches crawling around and you never turn the lights on.
Excellent. That's great stuff. Chase Cunningham, Joseph Blankenship, thank you so much. And in part 3, we'll actually walk through a real life scenario and see how orchestration and automation can help you better handle a ransomware attack. Stay tuned.